Hello, manna gatherers. I had a friend who said to me, why don't you just stop calling it morning manna so that if you are late from time to time, everyone is still getting their manna. It's just not morning manna. Maybe I should, but the perfectionist in me, if you're an Enneagram follower, I'm a number one hardcore. That number one or perfectionist reformer in me does not like that I am late or that I do not faithfully align myself perfectly with Exodus 16 when God instructed the Israelites to go out in the morning, first thing in the morning, to gather their manna each day. I want to give God, the people of God, God's good stuff every morning, and that is my goal. And I apologize to you that I have been late the last several days. There has been a lot going on, so I can only promise you from here on out that there will be manna each day. I'm hoping it will be morning manna, but it may not be morning manna, but it will be manna. God's good stuff. This week, I want us to be in Psalm 8:2, which actually Jesus quotes in Matthew 21:16, when the scribes and the Pharisees get angry at Jesus because the children around him are shouting, Hosanna, and they are praising Jesus. Having children, I know for me personally, from my experience, has given me a whole new set of eyes when it comes to God's stuff. There is a lot about our faith, about accepting our faith through accepting mystery. That is what Paul calls faith when it comes to God. And children have the best questions and some of the most profound logic when trying to understand and make sense of all the mysteries of our faith. And they have some of the keenest insight. So this week we are going to be in Psalm 8:2, and today I will start by reading from the NRSV translation. Out of the mouths of babes and infants, you have founded a bulwark because of your foes, to silence the enemy and the avenger. So on the car ride home after a communion Sunday, I think it was February 2020 before the whole pandemic hit, Hiram Clyde, my 5-year-old, almost 6 in December, and I had this conversation. Hiram Clyde asked, Mommy, do we really eat people, Jesus, when we have communion? And I said, we believe in Jesus' presence with us when we take communion, and communion is a way we remember the way Jesus lived and the way Jesus gave his life while he walked this earth, and we remember when Jesus died and he rose. So, says Hiram Clyde, we're not eating a dead person, are we? No. Oh, says Hiram Clyde, I get it. It's just like Jesus is the manna from heaven that fed the people from that one story. Yeah, Hiram Clyde, that's a good connection. Hiram Clyde, so here's what happened, I think. God cut Jesus up in heaven and threw him down in manna pieces, and that's what we eat every Sunday. No, Hiram Clyde, not exactly. That would still be eating a dead person. But, Mommy, Jesus is alive. He rose from the dead and he just floated up to heaven, so he's really not a dead person if he's coming down from heaven as manna. He's alive. Well, Hiram Clyde, I don't know if that's how it works, but I do know Jesus is at the table when we remember when Jesus gave his life so that we can all have a full, abundant life here and now and forever and ever and ever on into eternity. Hiram Clyde. So we don't have to actually eat a dead person, a dead body, to have that life. Yeah. I don't even begin to know where his mind came up with all of that, but he was clearly thinking about it. His little mind is trying to make sense of what we Methodists called a holy mystery. A holy mystery, we call it that for a reason. It is a mystery, and it is hard to understand, not just for children, but for adults too. I doubt, seriously, that God has been cutting up his son in heaven for the last 2,000 years every time people gather for communion. But I can appreciate Hiram Clyde's limited knowledge and experience of the world in his 5-year-old life came up with that idea that God would be so willing to do that. out of the mouths of babes, out of this babe's mouth, whether he was conscious of it or not, was his ability to connect Jesus with God's work in the Old Testament. He made that connection on his own about Jesus being like manna. Well, he's right. You have to take the good and throw out the weird stuff like cutting up dead people and throwing out from heaven. But there's some good stuff in what he said. Jesus is like the manna from heaven that God gives to us daily. Not just once. It wasn't just a one-time thing, but it is something God does for us over and over and over for us every single day. God has been at work in our world since the beginning of time, loving the world, providing for the world, caring for the world. And God has made sure that TLC, that tender love and care, would continue forevermore through Jesus. Hiram Clyde made that connection, and he wanted to understand how it all worked. Part of being a mom is saying from time to time, I don't know. But it is also listening and encouraging his thinking. It may not be right, so to speak, and yeah, definitely, certainly not. His view is not a traditional or orthodox view of communion, but as I already said, it's not entirely wrong either. What I want us to think about this week is that we don't have to have it all right and together. We don't have to have an absolute firm grasp on every single detail or belief of our faith to be faithful. Part of being faithful is, as Jesus says in Matthew 18, to become like little children. Why? Because children have imaginations without limits. They are able to, in a very surprising and awe-inspiring way, to hold two opposing views in healthy tension as they seek to understand and discover. We adults think we have always arrived at what life is. But really, we are like children, always and forever, always arriving, never arrived. There is always room for growth in faith. Just when you think you have everything figured out, a question may surface to your mind. Entertain that question or that thought, as absurd as it may be, as cutting up Jesus and throwing Jesus down for all of us to have for communion for the last 2,000 years. There might be a little piece of manna in that thought, in that question. And that manna might just be what you need to feed your soul. So I will see you tomorrow as we continue to explore Psalm 8, verse 2, and I'll share a little bit more of my children's insights to our faith.